Hello everybody and welcome to the first episode of Talking Teal Season 8. I'm Liron Cohen.
And I'm Mimi Torchin.
We're Lady Parts TV and we are here because all of us made Wentworth Season 8 and 9 possible. So
yes,
give
we
yourselves
did.
big pats on the back because...
My range of motion
I know, it's so hard. Weed whacking. We made it happen. So be happy, be merry, and...
I don't want to be Mary. I want to be...
you want to be Mari.
I want to be...
you want to be Marta. You want to be Sheila.
I want to be Sheila.
Well, wait, you haven't met Sheila yet. It's funny because this first episode is called Resurrection, and we know who they resurrected, but I think of it as we resurrected the show.
I think the season is called Resurrection.
No, that's Redemption.
Oh, Redemption.
Yes.
Yeah. Resurrection.
As you know... because I've talked about it, but if you don't, Talking Teal this year is offered free of charge. This is extreme times, and I think all of us could use the distraction and the entertainment. And many of you, we would never think of asking for anything of anybody at a time like this.
A haircut.
Yes. So this is going to be about 10 or 11 weeks. You will see our hair deteriorate with time.
The only thing that's going to happen to me is I already think all of the low lights are gone, and my ponytail will just get longer. This is it. And my
hair
ear holes have closed up, so no earrings.
My hair, on the other hand, will be a very interesting experiment.
It's going to be big.
It's going to be big. It's not even going to be long. It's going to be big.
It's going to be big.
So we are offering Talking Teal free of charge, hoping that you will all enjoy it. But if you do feel that you want to show appreciation and you have the means to do so, we've decided to every week highlight a couple of charities that are close to our hearts and that we think are, especially at a time like this, they could use your support. So if you feel that you want to do it, we would be thrilled. If you want to then share it with us that you did it, that would be a huge reward for us. So here are the two charities that we are highlighting this week.
And most of them are pandemic related.
Not most of them, but quite a few of them.
They are things that normally we wouldn't have
right.
picked,
well, yes, of course.
Yeah.
But there are things that I think are always important,
yes.
and at a time like this, they're getting less. So, yeah. But this is very pandemic related, these two.
So, the first is World Food Program, which does whatever it takes to deliver life-saving food to children and families in need, wherever they are in the world, by providing meals in schools, distributing staples during emergencies, and delivering food vouchers in conflict zones. Sorry. And the second is the Humane Society COVID-19 Relief Fund. People are losing the ability to pay for essential supplies and veterinary care for pets. And horse rescues, wildlife sanctuaries, and other organizations are struggling with staffing and resource shortages. Your emergency gift will help us respond to this crisis. I haven't done much talking lately. And the ripple effect on and the ripple effect on animals in need due to increased poverty now and in the months and years ahead.
So these are the two charities.
Humane Society COVID-19 Relief Fund and the World Food Program.
And I will be providing links to both their donation pages. So thank you in advance if you're considering doing that.
Or to a charity of your choice.
Yeah, so we're just highlighting, we're just giving you suggestions of things that we think are important right now. But
any charity that is close to your heart that you would like to give a few bucks to is fine. We're making these suggestions.
Yeah. We got the news today that Melbourne was put on an even higher restricted lockdown. So our hearts, especially today, are with you, our Aussie friends in Melbourne. And who also is in Melbourne is the production of Wentworth, which is currently supposedly still shooting because they had to stop in March when everything happened, and then they found ways with strict protocols to get back to work, which is pretty impressive, I think, because it's a high contact show.
Yes.
And I don't know what that means moving forward, but since they are working on next year's show, and since nobody, is going to work anywhere else anyway, hopefully this pause will not.
Anyway,
hopefully they'll be able to resume.
It's not going to affect this season.
No, the season is already in the can as far as I know.
Do
Okay.
they still put Do they still put things
In
in
the
cans?
can?
I think it's just a.
I'm
I think it's just a saying
old-fashioned.
now.
I don't know, I'm old fashioned.
And the cutting room floor.
Yes.
Don't think there's a cutting room floor.
By the way, this is your final week to vote on the Lady Parts TV Awards, and we'd like to remind you that Wentworth is nominated. So go vote for Wentworth or another show, and then vote for others on the way, because why not, right? You want to be heard.
Yeah.
Practice for November. I do want to tell you that this is the episode, second to the episode of Bee's death. This is the most amount of work I've had ever.
My poor wife.
And I do want to say, though, that when we were saying that we're doing this free of charge, it is contingent on your engagement. So if there's a week when I see, not enough emails come in, maybe I'll say, obviously this episode didn't interest people that much, so we'll skip this week. So this is an interactive vlog. As long as you are engaged and are emailing us, I know I'm giving myself more work, which is actually probably not in my best interest, but it's all about the give and take. So as long as you're engaged, we'll do it.
I did nothing.
You read.
Oh, yes, I read. And
you watched the show twice.
Right.
So
yes,
that's something.
Yes.
All right. We first have to address the new credits. And I think David will do this for us.
Oh, all right. David says, why? I get that they wanted to try something new visually, but that theme tune is so iconic, and those chants of "You don't own me" are
You
so...
don't know me.
Well, he wrote "own," so...
Oh, David. Is it "You don't know me" or "You don't own me"? No, it's "You
don't
know me."
Not
David.
"You don't own." Well, he was
He was
thinking
"You
that
don't
they
own me." Yeah.
and I didn't even notice the difference. Because I didn't even notice it had changed. So, anyway... those chants of "You don't know me" are so much a part of the experience of watching Wentworth. They're the only titles I don't fast forward through. It just feels unwarranted and a change for the sake of change. This feels like a huge step backwards. There was already so much new this season that we needed something familiar to hook us in again.
So the thing is, we didn't notice it the first time around because we were so busy talking about what we had just seen before the credits that I think we just talked over the credits and didn't notice it. When I went back to look at it, I totally agree. I do think that it wasn't warranted, it wasn't needed. Also, the new visuals I feel like are not connected to anything that I have any feeling about. So,
and we are creatures of habit.
Well, yes,
we get attached to what we get attached to.
Yeah, but also because that is the iconic Wentworth thing, and then now it seems kind of random and like,
you mean rando?
Rando, yeah. You Aussies like to shorten everything, don't you? However, it does go along with some of, as David said, there are some other things that feel new, and Kathy and Jane have stuff to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Kathy says, my general thought of this first episode of Season 8 is that I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it either. Guess I'm kind of lukewarm. It seemed to me there was a different vibe to this episode. The way the episode was shot made me feel like I was watching the old Cell Block show. Wow. It just had an old vintage TV show feel. I haven't been able to pinpoint what it was that made it look that way, but I sort of enjoyed it. Curious to see if anyone else noticed that, or if it was just me. Well, it wasn't just you, because there was a big difference.
Yeah, but I didn't feel that it was older. I felt it was newer.
Yeah, me too.
And actually, Jane...
It's certainly different.
Jane says more to that effect.
Oh, well, we're not going to just... I
wanted to show the two sides of the coin of
okay.
people, because tell us what Jane said, and then we'll talk about it.
From the start, you can see the show is upping their game production-wise. The opening credits are so much more sophisticated. Love the evolution of the theme music, and the shot framing and editing are sleek as can be. Are there some new creatives working on the show? New directors, DPs? Very impressive. Otherwise, the old ones have upped their games. The entire show seems like it has higher production value to me. Even the music choices, like in the jewelry store and when Joan gets her passports from the P.O. box. Nice job. An example, the escape scene with Lou and Reb was so wonderfully stylized.
Right, so I'm actually more in the Jane camp than the Kathy camp because I didn't feel it was an old feel. I felt it was very high octane and high production values, as she said.
It was brighter too.
It was brighter, and this is when we tell you that Kathy Chambers is no longer with the show.
The great and the brilliant and the magnificent Kathy Chambers.
It was very sad for us to learn that she's not going to be on the hello Louise in the final 2 episodes. She's fine, don't worry, she's absolutely fine. But there is a new guy in town, and his name is Daryl Martin, and he's not new actually. He has a very long list of credits.
Long, CV.
Yes. And I do think, from what I could tell from the first episode anyway, that Kathy's feel of the show was preserved.
Yes.
Those anxiety-producing angles, the darkness, but the show does feel more open. Partly, I think, because they shot more scenes outside of the prison, which I am so all for.
I love that.
But also because it does feel more stylized. The opening with Lou and Reb in the jewelry store, the music.
I loved that.
It was fantastic. The car chase, it was brilliantly shot.
It was very exciting. It was fun.
I loved the Latin music in the end for the Freed going to Rio. I did feel that there was more, something lighter. Something lighter, not just in the, oh my God, she's sniffing you.
I'll take a shower tonight, baby. Okay?
Louise, you're the star. We invaded her space. The sofa has been her new favorite place to be on, so she's just gonna hang out, I guess. Hi, Louise. Anyway, it felt a little more open with light, but it also felt like there was a little lightness to the feel of the show in general. So,
but it still preserved Kathy's
absolutely.
Stylization, I think.
Which was highly important because it became,
brilliant.
To me, Kathy and her camera were a character on Wentworth. It was just
absolutely
part of the show's
I would
everything.
Marvel at
as many,
the lighting and the
as we often did
angles.
on camera.
Yes.
But new director, no, this is actually the foolproof team of Pete McTighe on writing and Kevin Carlin on directing, and I think all the finales and premieres have always been Pete McTighe and Kevin Carlin, so I'm not surprised that it was so excellent. And this was actually such a typical Pete McTighe episode.
And in general, I just loved it. I have, of course, my
yes, we have a few.
Just a few.
But we did love it. And I ran a poll on Instagram to see how many of you liked it versus thought it was meh, and 77% of you liked it.
Good.
And actually said you were psyched.
I'm sure that Wentworth would be happy to know that. If those who
they're in lockdown.
Followers.
What else do they have to do? They watch Talking Teal. Resurrection, the first episode of season 8. So as we said, the first episode already established a few differences in how the show looks now, and also in the intensity of even worse offenders coming into prison, which I love. And by worse, I mean, just like, as Anne Reynolds said, more A-class offenders. But there are things that did not change, and in particular, there was one single thing that did not change, even after the siege. Jane?
One thing that has not been updated are those damn CCTVs. You can't hide those giant metal boxes behind great cinematography no matter how hard you try. All I could hear in my head was Mimi screaming, "Why are those CCTVs still there? They just had a siege, for the love of God, and they couldn't put in a more up-to-date system?" It made me laugh. Thanks, Mimi. Well, that's perfect, Jane. I have to say, you're right, and we were just bitching about them again. But the only different thing is I would have said, those fucking CCTVs.
Exactly. I don't know Jane to particularly be trying to keep it clean. I think she just...
No. And I usually just call them security cameras.
I think
they're so old-fashioned. I don't even think of them as CCTV.
The fact that they haven't upgraded their security system, to me, is worse than bringing back the freak from the dead, because it's just so incredulous.
Prop department, wake up.
Well, it's just, again, somebody at some point will take a broom and move it or cover it.
And I guess that's why they're still there.
That's why they're still there.
So that they can do what they do, which is cover up or move.
But that is such lazy writing to me. They just had a siege, and again, I'm pretty sure, I didn't look, but I'm pretty sure you can go on Amazon and buy small cameras that just go on the corner, and you can't do that to them. But Susan
They
said,
have their reasons.
Susan said they are phasing out hoodies. Maybe soon they'll phase out the old securities. There's something to hope for.
I think the phasing out of hoodies is a very good idea.
Yes, very good idea. Camille is asking if everybody else felt that the episode was rushed. Not only did I not feel that it was rushed, I felt that it was, even though it packed a shitload of stuff, I felt that it was very good at introducing the characters.
Well, there was nothing wasted.
There never is. This is Wentworth. There never is. I felt that they actually, though, did a really good job at
introducing new characters
and already giving us backstory.
Yeah, and raising stakes already.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, woo.
Yeah.
They didn't give anybody a chance to sort of settle in.
No.
Get used to being back in prison and.
Yeah, right. No, and in fact,
it felt like they just left off yesterday, and.
It did feel like it just they did, and in fact, I was wondering how long it's been since the siege, and somebody mentioned 3 months. I don't know if that's something that we actually know for a fact and how we know it, but
gave Allie a chance to get that makeover.
Exactly. You have to smuggle in the bleach, and but so I didn't feel it was rushed, and in fact, I want to quote Jane, who said, "Every character already seems so more textured and layered than they have been in years. Overall, in one episode, I'm seeing more texture in the main characters than I've seen in a while. It had gotten to be that everyone was so one note for a while. Even though Joan is still a psycho, she has some air to breathe and give her some more texture in her performance." Yes, I know. About Joan, you have something to say, don't you?
Always.
Jen says, "I'm already super invested in the new characters, way more so than I ever was with Ruby or Mari." And I do think that we should start with the stars of the new episode and the new season. Established right from the get-go, Lou and Reb, played by Kate Box and Zoe, I hope I'm pronouncing the name right, Tarakis. And first let's talk about them as a couple before we talk about them each as individuals. As Rachel said, we wanted a love story, we got it, and boy is it a love story. So much so that Sharon says...
And you do mean boy.
Sharon says, "Although I'm not yet fully recovered from Frankie and Bridget leaving, it seems like the new stars, Lou and Reb, are going to deliver big time." That is huge, comparing them.
Yes, I would never do that.
Frankie and Bridget.
It's an interesting thought.
Diana says, "I feel Box and Tarakis make a believable couple, and their first scenes fitted my belief that most women who end up in prison have made dumb decisions and often poor partner choices." And she thinks, by the way, she says that they were, Diana says that they were original prisoner characters. So that's always interesting because we didn't watch the show, so we love it when you give us these.
And even then, Reb was trans?
Interesting question. If anybody can answer, because that would be way ahead of their time.
Way ahead of their time.
So that would be interesting. They certainly want us to think that Lou and Reb are the couple for the ages. Their undying love for each other is pretty much shown in everything they do. Lou doesn't leave Reb behind when she realizes that that Reb can't get out of the car and they're going to be busted and she's going to be going back to prison. The slow-mo reunion when they're both released into general population was...
It should have been in a field of buttercups or something.
Yeah, they're almost making it seem like a Romeo and Juliet story, and I know that belongs to Bally with the...
Yeah, I mean...
But still, yeah.
I think it's just a love story. I don't think of it as a Romeo and Juliet, which is...
You don't think it's going to be tragic?
Oh, yes.
No, just in the Shakespearean gravity of the magnitude of the loveness, you know.
Yeah, I personally love the actors, especially I'm a huge fan of Kate Box, and I think that their love for each other is very inspiring and beautiful. But I personally don't get anything from them. I don't get any kind of a thrill.
Well, and actually that's something that I was interested in asking you guys, because what Wentworth is trying to do and being invested in them as I mean, Wentworth is trying to show us that their love is really, really strong and big, and that the story is going to be...
That seems apparent.
That the story is going to be epic. But I am wondering, in terms of your passion for the couple, in terms of your investment in them as a couple, how do you feel? So do let me know. I might run an Instagram poll later.
Yeah, I get a sort of a mother-son feeling.
Really?
So,
No.
I mean, no, not in the way they act, but if
just because of the age difference?
They just
because of the age difference? Be careful there.
No, to me, that's the nurturing quality. That's
the protectiveness.
The protectiveness.
Interesting.
I don't get a sexual vibe of any kind from them.
Okay, that's interesting. It also might be coming from the fact that Lou, whose psychology we haven't truly assessed yet, whether she's completely capable of loving, or is it more about possessing?
No, I think she is capable of loving. I think she really loves Reb. I think that she has a very protective thing towards him, and
he certainly invites it.
Just from my point of view, I just don't feel a partner, a couple.
Well, you don't feel that they're equal because they're not.
The love, the sex. I don't feel any sexual.
You don't feel sexual chemistry, but there is chemistry between them.
Oh yes,
and actually they're good friends in real life.
Beautiful chemistry as people,
Yeah.
as a unit.
Yeah.
I definitely do, but.
Well,
Best friends, you know.
Jane wonders if I don't get the best friend vibe. Definitely not that. But Jane,
well, I don't really mean like best buddies, but I mean a closeness between them is just not sexual.
Jane wonders if it's more of a grooming relationship, kind of like with Mari and Ali, or if Lou is truly sincere in how much she loves Reb. Again, kind of more as an equal, although they're not on equal footing. They're not. So.
I feel that she's truly, deeply in love with him, and everything that stands for.
So when she cries to Ali in the cell because she is so upset that she's guilty that Reb is in prison and she's not there to protect him, do you feel that was genuine, or that it was a manipulation meant to make Ali help them?
If I knew the character better, I'd be able to answer that question.
That's why
it just depends on how much of a sociopath she really is. I don't feel that she's a true sociopath. I think that she is capable of love, and I think she really loves Reb. And I think that if it was an acting job, it was a terrific acting job. And time will tell.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about Lou's psychology in a minute, because there is a lot to talk about there, definitely. She's very complex. But before we do, I just want to mention that we know that they've been together for 2 years. That's a very long time.
It is a long time.
They're played by 2 queer women, yay, Wentworth. Kate Box is gay, and a very out and proud lesbian. And actually, her partner was in the first season of Wentworth.
Who was it? You don't know.
I don't remember, but I don't think. I mean, she wasn't a main character, I don't think. But I don't remember. Maybe you'll remind me. And Zoe is non-binary and goes by the pronouns they and their. So thank you to Diana for this information, all the links and stuff. And before we go on, I want to take a little moment.
Yeah. No, I was just saying, interesting. Both of them have worked with
Marta Dusseldorf and Leah Purcell. It's a very small pond, and we love the family feel of it all.
Well,
and Susie Porter.
But no, I don't think Kate worked with Leah.
Oh no, Kate wasn't on that season of Janet King. No, it's all like Alice's chart, that's how it works.
But of course, Australia is small,
Yeah.
and their acting pool is small, so they often
crisscross.
But I love that Susie Porter and Marta were. That was Marta's first movie, Paradise Road. And then in Janet King, the last season, I'm sorry, what is...
Zoe Terakis.
Zoe Terakis had a very, very
and Susie Porter was there too.
Role.
Yeah.
And
Leah Purcell.
And Leah Purcell. And in Stateless, which if you haven't seen it, you must see Stateless. Kate Box and Marta.
And Kate Blanchett, but that's regardless.
Yes, well, we're not talking about.
Maybe she'll come to Wentworth Sunday.
Maybe.
But before we move on, we got an interesting email from, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it correctly, Annemiek.
I mean, she even...
I know, she sent me a recording, so it would be abysmal if I didn't pronounce it correctly.
Annemiek is easy if we're right.
I hope so. She is from Holland. And she wants to give us some perspective on LGBT representation in Wentworth. So,
Aussies, be proud. With Reb Keene, Wentworth has another transgender character in season 8, after previously having Maxine Conway. In addition to that, several lesbian characters have already been featured, as well as lesbian relationships. And there was a very...
Even gay, by the way. Jake...
oh, yeah. Yeah. And there was a very clear fuck the label statement from psychologist Bridget Westphal in the past, of course. That very strong LGBT representation in a natural way without being problematic is one of the reasons why Wentworth is such a big success. It's not that common on TV, and it's also played very credibly. Reb and Luke Kelly are also played by LGBT representatives Zoe Tarakis and Kate Box. Very good, very important. In interviews, older and more recent, I read that several actors like Kate Atkinson and Nicole De Silva say that LGBT representation can be better in Australia. Should be better. Of course, there is a further step to take, but I would like to say to the Aussies that they really can and should be proud of themselves in this respect. In my opinion, Australia leads the way.
There's more in the back.
Oh. And also, let's not forget that Janet King is also...
Oh, there are many. There are many.
Oh yes,
well,
this is long. Prisoner Cell Block H already knew lesbian characters in the late 70s, early 80s. I find that really unprecedented. The first kiss between two women on Dutch television was in 1993. I repeat, 1993. I don't even remember 1993.
You don't remember that? Good year.
Hardly.
No, bad year. Was my bat mitzvah?
Oh, well, anyway. I probably went into menopause. Also in a woman's prison, by the way, and that was quite an issue at the time. Now, in 2020, it's still an exception when there are lesbian or gay relationships in a TV series. In Holland, for sure. And I can't even imagine a transgender character. I believe she's talking about Holland. Mm-hmm. Last month, I listened to an online conversation with Heather Peace, who you all will remember, singer and actor from England, who was in Lip Service. She played a lesbian, and she is a lesbian, in the BBC series Lip Service. Peace, lesbian herself, told in that conversation that she hasn't been, this is amazing, hasn't been...
And we haven't read it ourselves, we're relying on Annemiek for the...
assigned any heterosexual roles since then. While heterosexual colleagues from Lip Service, who also played lesbian women, were still asked for heterosexual, they were still cast in heterosexual roles. Can't even say the word. Heterosexual roles.
You can't even say straight, yes.
As far as I can see, this form of discrimination doesn't, or at least much less, show up in Australia. So I'd like to put Kate Atkinson, Nicole De Silva, and all the other actors in SW and Wentworth cast and crew members on the fence. This is what she'd like to say to them, sorry. Be proud of what you've achieved until now and what's still going on, and know that Australia is an example for other countries. Hopefully this message will reach out to them through Lady Parts. Hello, be proud. I'm also curious how you look at it from the American point of view. Where does the U.S. stand regarding this subject in relation to Australia?
So, first of all, thank you, Annemiek, so much for providing perspective from
Wonderful
another country. Because I think in America we're doing much better now.
I think we're doing really, really well.
And you know, when the actresses say that it should be better, it can always be better. And I think there's still a ways to go. But it's also really important to remember that other countries are still far behind. So everything is relative. And so I'm sure that there are a lot of other countries around the world where you don't get that representation in your own television, and so you need to turn to other countries' material. But that's, to me, I think Australia, Wentworth, I think especially, is giving the entire Australian stats a boost in terms of representation. So that's fantastic, and I'm glad that they didn't just give us the token and then killed them off and moved on, but they keep bringing us more and more representation. So, but yeah, I think things are getting better, definitely compared to other places, but there's still a ways to go.
It seems on American television you can't throw a rock at the TV without hitting a lesbian. I mean, it's...
yes, and we're getting also better in trans representation. There's more non-binary.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's, and more casting trans.
I mean, it seems to be a thing It seems to be something that they're doing,
You know,
mindfully.
my first class in TV studies in college, I remember that my teacher asked, "Why do you think that we're seeing all this progress in LGBT representation and all that stuff?" And I said, "Well, I mean, obviously they follow the zeitgeist. They see that there's a lot more acceptance stuff." And she said, "Try again. Money. There's more money in it right now, because in the past, if you had LGBT representation, people turned off their screens. They would write you hate mail. They would ban you and march and protest. Now, finally, things shifted more on our side, and now there's more money in representing. More people will tune in and say, this is great.
You can
Go
get
ahead.
advertising dollars that way.
Yes.
I mean, because it's so little of an issue
awards
in American politics now, that also shows you, except of course.
Even when they try, they just
it just fizzles and dies.
It no longer is a wedge issue, it seems, because we've come to a point where most people know somebody gay in their lives, and so yeah, there is. Unfortunately, it all runs on money, and so that's why things are better.
Well,
but hope usually goes side by side, because then
it does, because
representation helps change public opinion. Public opinion in turn requests more representation.
I mean, Joe Biden famously.
There's one reason to vote for him. You see, people.
Yes, he famously said that he felt Will and Grace had a lot to do with acceptance of gay characters. Gay people.
And he said that just before he pushed Obama out of the closet.
Well,
in support of marriage equality.
Which
which in turn overturned DOMA, which in turn saved our whole lives, and we're married. So, okay. Now let's talk about Lou, shall we? I think it was a brilliant move on Wentworth's part to introduce us to Lou on the outside and as part of a couple, which, as you always say in soap opera, is key to be part of a couple.
You have got to be a super couple, really.
A super couple.
Just being a couple isn't good enough. A super couple is what will jettison you into the star stratosphere of superstardom on soaps.
Well, and also, no matter what she does...
Wentworth is a soap.
Yeah.
A very good soap.
Well, all you need to do is look at Joan lurking around corners and hearing everybody talk, and then you know it's a soap.
That is so Doug Marlin, for those of you who know soaps.
But not only is she part of a couple, but no matter what she does later on and what we find out about her later in the episode, we already know her as the woman who did not leave Reb in that car.
That's right.
She loves Reb. She's loyal. She's protective.
She's going back to prison for him.
She's fun and funny. She's doing this to fund his surgery. So
she was doing the
robbery.
Heist,
Yeah, the robbery.
Yeah.
So we're in her corner. We already like her.
Yes, we like her, but we don't trust her. I don't trust her.
Later on.
Yeah, yes. Oh, you mean right from the get-go.
Yeah, psychologically speaking, your first impression is extremely important.
Too.
Your first impression is what you think of the person, and everything you learn later, you will kind of try to adjust it to fit your first impression. So I think that the fact that they made her seem both fun and funny on one hand, and loving, extremely loving and loyal.
Brave.
I think that's a huge, it's an extremely great move on Wentworth's part to align us with Lou.
Which is a hell of a driver.
Even later, when she smashes that woman's head into she's just trying to kill a fly. Even then, even though we are like, okay, wait a minute, but still, it still could be justified a little bit, because she was doing it to protect Reb. She was doing it to somebody who was obviously hideous.
She didn't have to protect Reb. She was doing it because it got under her skin and because she's a hothead.
Absolutely, and we know all that. But it's not like she took this little wallflower who was doing nothing and was bashing her. She did it to somebody that we were made to hate on sight. Mm-hmm. So that already kind of, okay, so we are learning to distrust her, but I'm still kind of liking her.
And Reb you love. I mean, Reb is like a baby.
Yes.
Reb is just
you're
a
cool
little
with her.
Sweet puppy. That's how I think of Reb.
So you're cool with her trying to protect him, absolutely.
Yeah.
But then we start wondering who she really is when they do a few very important things. First of all, we learn that her nickname is Fingers Kelly, and we learn why. Secondly, we learn from Boomer, who... I love that. That was a great moment. We learned from Boomer that she was even a worse top dog than Jax was, and we know how bad Jax was.
As far as cruelty.
Yes. And most importantly, we see her being pitted against Allie. And there's no question who our alliances are with in that team, in that fight. She still has crew on the inside, we learn, which I'm sure will come into play and is very dangerous. So let's hear about some of your first impressions. And you have actually 4 to read in a row. So we'll start with David.
We'll start with David.
Yeah.
Hi, David.
I always give you David because I feel that you do a great job capturing his voice.
I love David. I love everybody
Yeah.
who writes to us, but David, I have a little special.
He's our boy.
He's our boy. Lou is straight out of the Wentworth mold of icons. I love her already. Fiery, passionate, totally fearless. Brilliantly played by Kate Fox.
She did a little bit of a British accent there for David.
Well, I could have done more. I'm so glad they gave her such a macabre sense of humor, too. She reminds me of the early days of Frankie. You can really see the heart in there, too. She is fiercely loyal.
Just want to say, David is from Liverpool, so
Liverpool.
By next week, maybe you can study that specific accent.
Liverpudlian accent is very hard.
Is
it's Ringo Starr. Just think Ringo Starr. Well, most of the Beatles, actually, came from Liverpool, and it's kind of a hard one. I always think of it as being very deep.
She'll practice till next week.
I might.
Okay, Lily?
Lily says that Lou is one of these strong, complex, and multi-layered characters that only Wentworth can create. She's strong, again, even brutal, a little impulsive.
A little impulsive? A lot impulsive.
A lot impulsive.
Yeah.
Powerful, almost fearless. She is a former top dog and knows the prison rules and knows how to break them. In brief, she's definitely trouble. But she's also loving, loyal, protective, and kind of broken. That's what can make her dangerous, but also what makes her such an interesting character.
Absolutely true.
I think that's an interesting observation about her being broken. I think most of the women in Wentworth are broken.
It's true. It will be interesting to see her really backstory.
Yeah, I'd like to know a lot more about her. I'd like to know also if her vulnerability is genuine. Like you said, as you said.
Yeah,
earlier.
we'll have to wait and see. They'll have to.
I hope so,
her
because
like
it always makes people much more interesting.
Julie?
Julie says, "Now, excuse me if I start to yawn. I have a.
I'm sorry, I gave you so much.
I have a
Do you want me
weird
to
thing.
take
No, I'm happy. I have a weird thing that sometimes if I read aloud too
it's
much,
because your throat gets constricted and
I have to yawn. So I'm going to try not to, because then you'll all yawn, except for the sociopaths. And
Joan is going
to yawn. And
now, if Lou yawns, then we know she's...
Exactly, but I apologize in advance. So Julie says, Lou is calculated and plays with her prey. Yes, she does. Which reminds me a little of Joan. But Lou is much sloppier, impulsive, and erratic.
And let's hope much more interesting in the long run.
Except that she was so interesting in the beginning.
Eye playing.
She is unpredictable, showing vulnerability and vengeful ice. But is the vulnerability in front of Allie and away from Reb an act? Or seems it was momentary, since she doubled down on losing her pinky finger. Lou has some of that flirty, sassy energy Allie had with Bea when she first started sassing Bea. Only Lou seems to be like that with an entire group. She loves an audience. Holding a historic reputation as a top dog is a great and welcome curiosity. I assume she grew some during her time outside because she's in love now. Maybe she had the capacity in the past anyway, but didn't they say she was worse than other top dogs? Jax was never that affectionate with anyone.
Speaking of which, I do wonder, because it's been at least a few years that we've been watching the show, and a few years have passed that we know the show and we've been in Wentworth, and how has she managed to stay on the outside all this time with this short fuse?
Temper of hers, yes.
I don't know. Well, Denise?
Wentworth created the best villains ever. Wentworth created the best villains ever if they are a cloned version from Prisoner. It makes me wonder if we will eventually see Lou soften as time goes by, or if the writers will keep her unlikable and villainous. We've seen so many come in hateful and mean, but leave with a softer personality. Kaz and Frankie are two of those examples.
Absolutely, and I think
very interesting.
That's something that Wentworth actually does very well. As they develop characters and let them grow and let us get to know them better and know their because when you're in Wentworth, you have to put on a very, very tough outside.
Yeah, or you go the other way, as with Bea, who came in sort of soft and scary and turned into, top dog.
By the way, did anybody else notice the scissors tattoo, which I thought was a nod both to lesbians and possibly how she used to get rid of fingers?
Aha.
But it was...
It could have been a double
entendre. Yes. So,
do I have more now?
Soon. As many of you pointed out, though, this time around in prison, I don't know what happened the first time in prison, but this time around, Lou has somebody she cares about.
Right.
And that can be the biggest weakness in Wentworth, as we know from just speaking of B and other people. So that could mean weakness, but as Jen points out as well, Lou does seem to truly love Reb and will do anything for him. That, combined with her visibly short fuse, seems like a deadly combo. And I definitely think that that bodes ill.
Yes, and Reb is very vulnerable.
Yes.
Again, he's like a puppy.
Yes, and I have lots to say about Reb, and so do you, in a moment.
So do I on behalf of someone else.
What?
So do I on behalf of someone else.
No, I have some stuff to say.
No, but you said and you do too. And I'm saying
all of you, I mean.
Oh, well.
Okay, let's hear what Lauren says.
Lauren says, although Lou was a past top dog, she has someone to protect now in Wentworth with her, and that is dangerous. We've just discussed that. Her actions will affect Reb, no matter how brave Lou thinks she is. We've already seen what a temper she has. And no doubt that's going to land Lou and Reb in hot water. To have gone and hurt Boomer so cruelly, and it was cruel using Liz's death as her inspiration to almost suffocate Boomer with a plastic bag, was a total overreaction. Boomer was not in the right to tease about Reb like that.
And we'll talk about that at length later.
And Princess, and you would think that her relationship with Maxie would have helped her understand Reb more and be sensitive to the whole situation. But what Lou did was not a balanced reaction at all. Lou is obviously clever in the way she punishes others. It's not even just a bashing, but something so deeply personal and traumatizing for her victim. I still find Lou interesting in that she clearly doesn't take shit from people and is fiercely loyal to Reb. And it is clear she doesn't fear anyone in the prison yet. I don't even think Allie taking her pinky is going to make her settle down. I just think she'll be more determined to show Allie she doesn't care about her rules. I am interested to see the way this dynamic plays out in upcoming episodes. The nonchalant Lou, who this time around in prison does have something she cares about, and we know in Wentworth, caring that much about someone can mean danger.
And David thinks?
Very good assessment, by the way,
I do want to say...
I just want to say...
Always.
It's a really, really, really...
You're all so clever, and that's
right
why
on
I
the
love
money.
this. And by the way, speaking of, it wasn't okay for her to use Liz's death like that to torture Boomer. On the flip side of that, when she's in the dining room and she says, what you did for Liz was a thing of beauty. I love that when she said that.
Yes.
So I don't know. I mean, she still probably thinks that. She's probably the kind of person who would do that for the person she loves. That didn't stop her from using it then to hurt Boomer.
Mm-hmm.
But so this is the kind of complexity that I find so interesting in her.
She uses both sides of the coin.
And she feels both sides of the coin, I think.
Unless she was had she and Liz had their encounter in the yard yet?
She and Boomer? No,
yeah, she and Boomer?
No.
Okay.
Okay, David says?
I don't think she wanted to cause any trouble for Allie initially. I think she was genuine in her appreciation of what Allie did. But poor Boomer's innocent questions made her snap and act out of impulse. Then, that then just started a ball rolling between Allie and Lou, one that their egos won't allow to slow down. Now, I have to disagree.
Yes. Well, but save your disagreement about Boomer's innocent questions for when we talk about Boomer, okay?
Sure.
Rachel sums it up, though, and she says that Lou is smart, charismatic, and uncontrollable. This is going to be a fun ride. Now, when it comes to... By the way, Camille suggests, because I heard an interview with Joe Porter where they asked her if maybe she will do a spin-off with one of the characters. Camille suggests a Lou prequel.
Oh, that's an interesting
right?
idea. Yeah.
I could get behind that.
Yeah, you can get a whole prison full of women we don't know.
Yeah,
Well, we
except
know
Boomer. And
there.
Liz could come back
Liz,
too.
yes, oh, that would be a lovely way to have
yeah, Celia
back.
still come
I
back.
would love it. I miss her so much.
Yeah, we actually have a really good note from, I think, Kathy later on talking about that, which we'll read. So we know that Lou and Allie, their conflict is going to be central. And we have more to say about the Lou-Allie relationship when we talk about Allie. But first, let's talk about Reb. And I think from your emails and from our experience, we all loved Reb on site. Is what?
Can you read that?
Yes, surprisingly, I know. My eyes will hurt.
Chicken scratch.
Rachel sums it up. Reb is no criminal. He proved that when he turned Mari down. He is in love with the criminal, and that is a very good distinction. Nevertheless, he's going to be in big trouble for that association and for that love.
But he's a criminal now. I mean, he pulled the jewelry heist.
Yes. But he's not like...
No, he's not
that
hardcore.
Kind of, yeah. And he was only doing it to fund his own surgery, so...
I was only doing it to buy a Maserati. Yeah.
But as Diana said earlier, a lot of the time it's about wrong partner choices. I don't think Reb would have come up with it on his own without Lou leading him that way.
Never.
Not only is he in love with Lou, when they're in the yard and Ruby invites him to play ball, he literally looks up to her for permission, and he defers to her in every way.
Yes.
And you could say that because it was in prison and he was unsure of whether it was safe or not, and she was in her element, that he was just looking for a kind of approval. But I think that kind of imbalance in their power is a key in their relationship.
Well, again, that's another reason I get that mother-son vibe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he certainly isn't her prisoner, so it isn't like, asking permission from your. It's like, is this okay?
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a nurturing and a protective sense. I do think that there obviously is sex between them as well, but I see what you mean. And also when she goes out into the yard, kind of like that, like I own this person, but I also don't fuck with this person because this is my person. So it's a very interesting relationship, one that we haven't seen in the prison yet.
Yes.
And it's actually, even though it's, I think, more common, at least from shows and stuff, it's more common that happens in the prison. They came into the prison like that already. His past with the traumatizing experience with conversion therapy, with psychiatrists, makes him immediately sympathetic to us, and I think we all kind of feel like we want to protect him. There's something very pure about him.
Very pure, very innocent, very, yes.
Yeah, and Zoe, I think, plays that perfectly, and especially if you've seen Janet King, you know that that was a very different character in Janet King. So,
but she had her vulnerabilities too.
That character in Janet King, yeah. Well, absolutely.
She was young. She's 50. She was 15 or something like that. So
yeah,
and being exploited.
So Reb is a trans female to male boy, and Jane says,
finally, a proper trans representation on this show, perhaps paralleling the more sophisticated and mature growth of the show in general. Everything is seeming more mature to me. In my opinion, this is a much better trans story in one episode than all the episodes with Maxine. Maxine was fine, but to me, never was authentic. Reb is authentic to me. The strip search and shock therapy references were so strong in telling us the immediate story. Obviously, the writers have become more mature about this subject since back in the day.
Probably also from some responses that they got back in the day.
I'm sure they learned a lot. It was really well done and invoked such empathy. What an amazing accomplishment by the writers to get us to know her background in such a short time.
Yes, I have to correct Jane,
right.
Sorry.
Anyway, to show his pain and journey up until now in those short snippets.
And, we're going to preface and say some people are going to get the pronouns mixed, also probably in talking about Zoe and remembering to use the they, theirs.
Me included.
Please remember that this is all good intention, and we're all
right.
Pronouns are, this is just people getting used to speaking in a certain way. It doesn't mean that they don't want to or that they don't think of that person in that way. It just means that they are used to speaking in a certain way and they have to get used to it. So please allow for some mix-ups, okay? Speaking of Maxine, Maxine was male to female. Reb is female to male. And that makes me wonder, do they take all trans people and put them in women's prison because they assume they'll be safer there?
It's an interesting idea. Well, I certainly think Maxine was safer.
Or
She identified completely as a woman. And although Reb identifies as a male, physically...
So that was my next question. Unless
maybe it's a judgment call.
Maybe it's a judgment because Maxine was post-op and Reb is pre-op.
Mm-hmm.
And that is interesting because that tells you a lot about how government and institutions, how they evaluate gender identity. Is it only strictly biological? And if they have the surgery, if they take their hormones, yeah. So, which is ironic because Reb is in Wentworth because he was trying to pay for his surgery, and most trans people don't actually have the surgery because it's very expensive
and it's very painful.
Well, I don't know about that, but it is inaccessible to a lot of people, and so I personally don't think that that's the way that they should evaluate identity, but it's an interesting question that they raise without actually talking about it. Maybe in the future they will. You have something to say?
No.
Okay. So even though Reb said an immediate no to Mari's offer to pay for surgery in return for killing Ruby, when Reb is in the yard being introduced to Ruby, we see in his expression and also in the sound effect in the background that the wheels are turning.
But it also could have been a recognition of who.
Oh, she's the one. Yeah,
you know.
Could be, but I don't know. Ruby did immediately offer him to play ball, so maybe, she immediately broke the ice, she immediately was nice to him, so...
that will make it harder.
Yes, but time will tell. There's a lot of complexity in all those relationships. Mari will figure in. Mari is bound to get into Lou's shit. Yeah.
Much that's going to happen. This was just episode 1, and look at us. We can talk about this for about 4 hours.
And we probably will. We apologize. The good thing is, as you did say on my poll, that the longer the better, which made me feel a lot better about it. So, guesses on where Reb's story might be going.
Lauren says, Reb was a character I instantly liked. The flashbacks and clear trauma of his backstory show he has a complicated past. Already within 1 episode, Reb has been thrown into a scary situation without his partner, been preyed upon by Mari Winter, who of course can smell insecurity and vulnerability a mile away, and presented with an opportunity to have the gender surgery he so desperately wants for an evil price. Even though Reb says no, I think this is the beginning of a wrestle within himself. Kill Ruby and gain the money, or not? I think this is not something Reb would ever consider doing on the outside, but I can see that now Mari has planted the seed, and Allie has hurt Lou. Reb may have some motivation to hurt Allie back by killing Ruby. Are Allie and Ruby together?
That's
me.
Question. That's me.
You?
I added that. I'm sorry, I forgot to take that out of your notes. But that made me wonder for a second because I was like, wait a second, I didn't even think about them.
They don't seem to...
there is a closeness. They spend time together.
And they did have a... last season, they did have...
Yeah.
So,
but,
another couple that had no chemistry to me. Anyway, I wonder how quickly Lou will see the hooks Mari has tried to sink into Reb. Reb and Lou seem to be an unbreakable pairing. There may be either an agreement made with Mari or trouble between Lou and Mari, which is what I'm
assuming.
For.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's going to be trouble. Rachel says the new call center that they're putting in Wentworth with Vera in charge could present some interesting possibilities for storylines, and maybe she thinks that maybe Lou and Reb are going to do some fundraising that way for his surgery. Yeah. And David says, I'm guessing Marta Dusseldorp's character Sheila was a senior member of the cult that Reb's parents sent him for conversion therapy. I can see him being roped into doing some horrendous things out of fear. I hope Lou can protect him. Okay, so I know that Sheila was in a cult, and I know that Reb was in conversion therapy.
It might not have been the same thing.
Right, I didn't think that they sent him to a cult for conversion therapy, especially because I think we know that Lou was also in the same place for anger management.
Right.
All that stuff doesn't jive for me with cult.
But we do know from the previews
that she knows him.
That Sheila knows Reb.
Not only does she know him, right, and did this in a very kind of, that is very maternal and very kind of, so.
I wonder how that would feel.
Marta Dusseldorf is our crush du jour.
Yes, our crush
we
du jour.
apologize for
not
any
that we
drooling.
haven't been watching her for a year, but there was something about A Place to Call Home that just when we watched, all 6 seasons and 12 in, 2
12
weeks,
days or something, yes.
sort of sinks into your consciousness.
Yes, and then when we heard that she was coming to Wentworth, it's like, oh!
It was fabulous.
Yes. Speaking of Marta Dusseldorf, which we probably will be doing a lot this season, we cannot wait.
We can't wait.
And
because there's something about her, it's an element, it's a kind of a character, a kind of a calmness, a kind of a regal presence that we haven't really had. I'm trying to think if there's been anybody to...
Not in that way. Sonia at the beginning kind of presented a little bit as if she was, but pretty quickly we figured out
Sonia was always like the cat licking her mouth after having the cream.
Right.
It was always something. I loved Sonia in the beginning. There was always something, mischief
delicious,
in her eyes. But
Marta's character Sheila, as far as I could tell from what I read, comes in after something in her cult went terribly wrong. Now she is in for murder. But it could be that she's one of those people whose circumstances happen that way, and she's not actually a person who would go and kill out a person. It might just be some horrible ritual going wrong,
and then she can be a killer.
But and also, even if she's not a killer. Again, talking about Stateless, Kate Blanchett's character, cult leaders can be extremely evil. Just in how they know to manipulate other people and break them down. And so, especially if she's going to go for Reb, Lou, Sheila, Reb in the middle. Also, Marta said she had a lot to do with Susie Porter this season.
Which she was thrilled about.
So interesting stuff going to happen.
She was thrilled about working with Kate, too. Even though I don't know...
Kate Box.
Kate Box. Even though I don't know that they had any... We're going to have to go back and watch Stateless again to see if they had any scenes together.
And so for them to be able to play together, all these big actors who are so good, when you think about Pamela Rabe and Susie Porter and Marta Dusseldorf and Kate Box, and, just, it's so fabulous to have all these people to play off one another.
It's thrilling.
Leah Purcell.
It's
just fabulous.
We just watched Janet King, by the way, all the way through again, and hadn't remembered much about it all and loved it. And went back and watched Crownies first, which was the jumping off point for...
as far as we're concerned.
Yeah. Well, it was. Janet King was a spinoff.
Yeah. Anyway, Kathy also said that she saw a promo picture with Marta Dusseldorf and Rachel Griffith and couldn't figure out if it's real. I don't think it's real. I think it's... I haven't heard anything.
It was
Rachel Griffith and Marta Dusseldorf. I haven't heard anything.
Were they in teal?
She didn't say, but I don't...
Because if they were in teal, Rachel Griffith could be a surprise.
Well, didn't somebody once for a Talking Teal party did photoshopped Rachel Griffith into the prison somehow?
I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about Rachel Griffith being cast, and I think
I haven't heard anything about Rachel Griffith in a long time.
That is also true. All right, let's talk about Allie. Starting with Julie's question, do you think the writers heard Talking Teal complaints over Allie's past weaker storylines and that's why, you know what?
Absolutely.
We'll take full credit.
We did it, all of us.
So, anyway, if it has been 3 months, it's been 3 months since the siege and Allie had a complete transformation. And
makeover.
And Jane said that she completely never embraced the idea of Allie as top dog until she saw her in the yard in that new look. So, a look can do so much for how we can perceive a character. And so kudos to the makeup department, to the hair department, to everybody for coming up with this new look. And you have a lot of thoughts and feelings about new Allie. So we're going to do a little bit of ping pong here with many of your thoughts. Diana starts and says, my understanding is that killing someone, particularly in the violent manner Allie did in the finale of Series 7, is a life-changing experience. So I'll buy Allie taking on the top role.
Lauren says, I'm not completely sure that I believe she is this top dog yet. I mean, it is a vast difference to the crying, sad, desperate prisoner we saw last season. I'm definitely liking the new attitude and look. Allie, of course, by this time, has basically been through so many life-altering traumas. I can see maybe if in her mind she made a decision to no longer be pushed around, then her new attitude fits. She's lost everyone she cared deeply about, everyone she looked up to. She thinks she sent Joan to her death, and she shot Mari plus killed Brody. Killing Braden changed B. Still interested to see how long Allie is able to hold on to this mantle. I mean, all kinds of crazy-ass shit is about to go down in Wentworth. I think Lou is just the beginning. Can she really hold on to top dog status with these new A-class prisoners entering Wentworth?
That's a good question.
And I have, of course, Marta.
Another opportunity to just mention Marta. Sharon says, Allie's ascent to top dog.
By the way,
yeah?
I know you want to do a ping pong thing, but I think this is a very excellent analysis.
As always,
Yes,
Lauren is an extremely smart person.
Yes, she is.
And
Okay. Great insight.
Most of the Wentworth viewers are.
Yes.
I mean, you have to be a certain type of analyzer to enjoy Wentworth the way that you do. So.
Anyway, half of what Wentworth is about is who will be top dog when you get to be top dog. Will you stay top dog?
And what will you have to do?
What will you have to do to be top dog? Who's coming up behind you?
Yeah. It's funny, actually, when you think about it. Sharon says, Allie's ascent to top dog is problematic, and I think, despite the new and tough look, that her days are numbered, and as Lou said, she's not top dog material. David? I can't do it, and I'm not even going to try, David. What a great turnaround for her character. Although I have to say, because we've known the character for so long and seen how dependent she is on other women, she's a starfucker, remember, I found the ascent to top dog not 100% believable. It's not the fault of Kate Jenkinson, who exudes everything she needs to in the role, but because the character has never shown any leadership qualities in her life. It's quite a jump. I'm not getting it just yet. I think she will prove me wrong, but for now it's jarring. Denise says, I never thought I would say this, but I'm in love with Allie. Well, kind of. Frankie will always have my heart. But damn, Allie is hot, definitely hot this season. Not only is she physically different, she is mentally different. Was I shocked that she cut off Lou Kelly's finger? Yep, I was. As horrific and violent as that was, I was yelling, yes, Allie, yes, the whole fucking time.
Gave me a thrill. Jen says, damn, Allie ain't fucking around. She didn't even wait for Lou to finish her snarky insult. Why do I have a feeling that is going to be the thing that just sealed Allie's fate, though? She's trying to be a great white and putting on a damn good act, but she's just a baby shark. Sing it with me, babe.
We don't have the rights to that, but I would like to say,
yeah, right.
she wrote do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And I would like to say, Jen, I thought you liked us. You got that
really
song
liked us.
Stuck in my head for days.
It's such an earworm.
It's evil of you.
Yes. And she doesn't, but we love you.
But we love you.
And she doesn't know who she's dealing with. Not good. I will be very surprised if Allie makes it to the series finale, especially given that Jenko has said she wants to go out with a super gory death scene.
Dear.
Not that means that they'll give it to her. I mean,
it is Wentworth. If there ever were the place to go out in a gory death scene.
Well, if it serves their purposes, I'm sure that and they'd be willing to do it because, you don't give up your stars that easily. But just because she wants it again doesn't mean she's going to get it.
I hope it doesn't happen, but if Allie dies, I hope we end up seeing 2 seahorses in the sky. That's
all
I can see.
So
go ahead
sweet.
Go ahead and read Camille, too.
Yes, I have... Camille.
Yeah.
Yes, I have been a believer that Allie would be top dog since the day she slugged Kaz. She was a member of the Red Right Hand.
That's true.
And has had moments of aggression. Can she sustain it? Heck no. When the camera panned to her crew, I thought back to the island of misfit toys from Rudolph Christmas Special. There's Tiny Ruby, some older lady with a bad mullet, and Boomer.
That's very
Now,
funny.
first of all, Ruby's tough. And this is just her immediate little crew. I mean, most of the women in the prison voted for her to be top dog. So I think those misfit toys. It's a funny observation. I love it. Are not all there is to Allie's crew.
Lily says, the first time I saw Allie as top dog in the prison yard, I didn't buy it. I don't know, something just felt wrong, not plausible. I think it's because I saw her as a copy of Frankie, and that annoyed me. She had the same clothes, teal pants, white tank with exposed bra straps. She had almost the same haircut and makeup. All that was missing were the tattoos, and she would have been the blonde version of Frankie. And that annoyed me because I want Allie to be herself, not a copy of someone else. But I was going to give it a try because in the meantime, who else could be top dog anyway? And of course, these ideas were washed away during the last scene. Allie definitely grew up. She gained respect and confidence from both the women and the guards. She's strong, powerful, and fearless. Well done, girl. And finally, Rachel?
Allie as top dog gives us a hybrid mix of all our favorite top dogs. We see flashes of Bee, Kaz, and even some Frankie, too. That's just noted. I absolutely loved the scene where she was comforting Boomer in the cell. She apologized for the mistake and reminded Boomer that killing Liz was an act of love. This was a real Kaz moment.
So
to
true,
me.
Rachel. Great observation.
Very good observation. On a side note, Allie showed her humanity when she punished Lou. I think, I'm not sure humanity is the word I would use there, but, the fact that she's human, I guess. When she punished Lou. Jax, Mari, or Joan would have been savage. Oh, no. Let me stop. She knows what she's saying.
She always does.
Sorry, Rachel, I did not mean to reinterpret you. You always know what you're saying. On a side note, Allie showed her humanity when she punished Lou. Jax, Mari, or Joan would have been savage enough to threaten to cut off Reb's finger instead of Lou's. Lou would not have hesitated to apologize to Boomer if Reb had been threatened. I will say this. I would like to see some flashbacks on how Allie got her head together so quickly after the siege. Greg Miller must be one hell of a shrink. I don't think we'll see it, though. They seem to be in a hurry to move on.
Yeah, Susan wrote and said that she does think that we'll see flashbacks. I don't think so. I think it's actually... I don't know how believable it would be to show.
I mean, it's here we are. And
Yeah.
let's just live with it,
Yeah.
and let's assume that things happened that happened. And
Yeah, because I don't think it's Greg Miller's work. I
it
think
certainly isn't Greg Miller's work.
I think it's much like Bee when she lost her daughter. She just felt that she had nothing to lose anymore. I think that Allie,
As we saw, at the end of last
Exactly.
season.
not last season. What do you mean? Who? Bee?
No,
Allie.
Allie.
Yes. Well, Allie her descent started when she lost Bee,
Right.
and then she thought she kind of had Mary, and then of course she lost Kaz, which was a huge thing, and then she realized that Mari betrayed her, and so she also kind of feels like she has nothing left to lose. I don't see her being. See, but she's not cruel because she cut off Lou's finger not out of cruelty, but because she knew she had to.
Self-preservation. She had to. There was no way that she would remain top dog if she let Lou get away with that.
Well, and also she doesn't tolerate violence in her prison, as she said, and Lou threatens to wreak havoc and be very violent.
Lou
with
would
people.
be a reign of terror.
She finally listened to Boomer, and because she did give her the benefit of the doubt. She gave Lou the benefit of the doubt at first, even though Boomer told her how bad she was. She said, we always try to be nice first, but she knew that she had to put her in her place right now before more shit happens, and she couldn't let her call her on her bluff.
No.
It would have been disastrous.
It was a very bad idea, a very bad choice on Lou's part. She just really underestimated her, and she pushed it too far.
And I feel she underestimates everybody. I mean, she really thinks that
she thinks she's the queen
she's
of
all that.
France.
But this is the first time that she had to deal with real threat, I'm assuming. In the 3 months she's had to be top dog, so this will be a true test. So far she's doing great. But actually I want to point out that she cut the finger herself, if you notice. She didn't have anybody else do her duty.
Exactly.
She didn't have an enforcer. She did it herself, and I give her huge props for
Absolutely. Yes,
that.
I had my doubts about Allie, too, because Allie is a very good person. And it's hard to be a good person and be a good top dog. But
unless you feel like Kaz was doing it, that you're doing it to
for the
protect
women.
other people.
Absolutely, and I do believe that's the way Allie feels. It's not for power.
Right.
It's for taking care of the women in the prison and keeping a certain level of safety.
Right.
I think violence for her, the no violence policy is extremely important, and she's willing to be violent to enforce it.
And it's really keeping the legacy of the two women in her life that were the most important, Kaz and Bee, who both were nonviolent in terms of their legacy and their perspective on how to run the prison. And I think she knows that if it's not her, somebody else way worse will take the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I give her huge kudos for that. Although Kathy was the only one who thought that it was extreme what she did to Lou, and that a good bashing would have done the trick. I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I think you have to give as well as you get, and that's what she was known for.
And it was a crucial moment.
It was, first of all, to the writers, salam.
Salam?
Salami?
Salam.
I'd give you big kudos and applause. It was a really brilliant moment, and it was necessary, and it upped the stakes so high as far as Allie is top dog. And I have to say to Rachel that was a brilliant observation, that it would have been easier.
But that's not the kind of person Allie is.
To have threatened, yes, because she would never
have hurt somebody who was a complete innocent.
But even to threaten it, because then
she had to be able to do it. She had to be able to follow through. She knew that she wouldn't be able to not follow through if she called her bluff. So she wouldn't have been able to just threaten Reb, because she would have to be able to follow through on it.
Well, and the other thing is that the apology would have been elicited. It would have meant nothing.
Yeah. Well, no, but it was more to assert, I'm in charge here, and if I tell you to apologize, you'll apologize. Right. It wasn't because we actually thought.
Yes, and all she wanted her to do was apologize. They traumatized Boomer, practically smothered her.
And more than that, which we'll talk about.
Yes, deeply, deeply affected her.
No doubt we will see much more of the Allie and Lou dance in coming episodes, and who will come out on top? So Rachel says, there will be trouble between Allie and Lou, but I think Allie will come out on top in the fight. I don't think Allie's downfall will come until she learns about the freak, meaning being alive. And also, Julie says, oh, sorry, before I go to Julie, I have to say Jane had a crazy theory. Not uninteresting, though. And somebody said there, Julie, I think, said something about the interaction between Lou and Allie reminded her a little bit of Bee and Allie. So Jane says, for 1 second I was out of my mind and I saw a flash that Allie and Lou might hook up. She has Bee hair. But then I called myself crazy. But am I? I think so. First of all, because I don't think Lou would cheat on Reb.
No.
First of all. But also because I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
But who knows? Crazier things have happened, like Ruby and Allie.
I don't think so.
Julie says, I wonder if she will go into a relationship, Allie, with someone digging her power role this time, the opposite side of the relationship coin. Usually she is the one looking for somebody who's strong. Maybe now she'll go with somebody who will look at her in that way. Mm-hmm. All I can say is I hope it's not Ruby.
I'm just very eager to see next week's episode, because I want to see the repercussions of the finger cutting off. I'm really, really...
Yes, interestingly enough, they didn't show anything about that in the preview. It was all about other things. Mm-hmm. By the way, Allie and Will are working together.
I love that. I love the way the smart govs work with the top dogs. Give them a lot of latitude, a lot of power, because it really takes a lot of problems out of their hands.
Yeah, you kind of have to. I mean, I don't know if that actually works that way in real prisons, but it sure makes for interesting drama.
Mm-hmm. It sure makes it easier, I think, on Will too.
Yeah,
he needs all the help he can get.
Well, and he only does it, I think, with top dogs that he respects. Yeah, I don't think he did that with Jax, for example.
Well, he wasn't governor then either.
No, but I mean, the governor back then, his wife, actually. Mm-hmm. One thing several of you brought up as a disappointment in Allie this week is the fact that she did not stop Boomer from stepping right into it with Lou. She was right there when Boomer was talking the way that she talked about Rev.
And Lou.
She could have stopped her, and as Kathy said, Liz would have stopped her, and surely Sonia would have done that.
Boomer.
Susan,
not now. Let's not go there.
So it is time to talk about Boomer. And before we start talking about Boomer, I just want to ask a question. So the food in the cafeteria now is gross.
Looked good, but as
No,
Ali
it
said,
looked horrible.
oh, I thought that
No,
pasta
it
looked kind of good.
Oh, it looked
But
disgusting.
as Ali said, it's not
No,
as
she
good
said
as
it's
it
even
looks.
worse
It's even
than
worse
it
than
looks,
it
if
looks.
that's possible. So that's because it looks so bad.
It's this privatization.
It is.
thing.
Did they take a page out of Orange is the New Black, or is it strictly to justify and excuse why Boomer has lost the weight? I don't understand.
Boomer lost weight?
Yes,
Not that I
Katrina.
noticed.
Katrina's lost a lot of weight, and it does show. And they actually remark on that when they said it's great that the food is so bad, but it's great for anybody who's trying to lose weight. I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna be. I don't know who works in the kitchen now that the food is so disgusting.
Well, there does seem to be some with the new head girl, Jane.
The manager, maybe. Maybe she.
I think
maybe
they privatize things.
No, I don't think they privatized the manager. No, it's not been privatized. But I wonder if she's been cutting. If she's been, because she's so eager to have.
I'm just showing.
She's so eager to impress, and she wants to use the budget in certain ways. Maybe she cut back on the budget for food and did something else with it.
Well, I don't think Wentworth was ever known for its cuisine.
No, but there's bad and there's worse. Anyway, Boomer, as usual, especially when Pete McTighe is in charge of what she's saying and doing, is the source of both the greatest laughter and the most heartbreaking.
Yes.
Yeah, the most heartbreaking. And oftentimes they're actually mixed together in the same scene.
And Katrina is so brilliant.
Seriously.
I think that somehow or other her brilliance might be lost in her innocence, She is just magnificent. I just love Boomer, and she's the one I want to protect all the time.
Yeah, even though she's the one doing the bashing.
Even so, I've already forgotten she's the basher because
she hasn't done that in a long time. Yeah. So some of her highlights, of course, one of the best in the yard when Vera comes with Grace and lets her hold her. It was both funny in her remark about, in her question about Vera's tits, and especially as many of you reminded me because she was the one who nicknamed her Vinegar Tits, so that was a very nice nod to the fans. But at the same time, it was heartbreaking because you know that Boomer loves babies and has always wanted a baby, and she is very likely not going to have a baby, especially now with probably added sentence for Liz's euthanasia. And also because she, like all of us, are thinking and saying, I wish Liz could be here because they both brought her into the world and to be there to see
Lizzie.
To see Grace.
Yeah.
So that was a very tender moment. It was a beautiful moment. And also the moment with Lou in the yard was at the same time funny and extremely dangerous. I personally think one of my favorite line was in that moment when she looks back at Ellen and says, "Don't think she thought about it, about the whole she's gonna have a dick then and how you're gonna." Don't think she thought about it. So why did she say those things about Reb? It was a weird moment, and you have different thoughts about this. So I'm gonna start with Camille. Who says, I was disappointed in the fact that Boomer was ugly to Reb. Considering Maxine was her best friend, I wish the writers would have made a more considerate effort on that scene. And then we have
David. Her innocence and inquisitive nature is just so endearing. I'm so glad they took this road with her. She's a much more interesting character now. I just felt so sorry for her when she was talking to Lou about Reb. So innocently inquisitive, but not able to articulate herself well enough. Poor Booms unintentionally came across as crass and insulting to Reb. My heart just hurt for her. Then the attack in the bathroom was just horrible to watch. Boomer has completely had enough of prison. She's so drained by it all. It's shown her nothing but abuse and death.
And before you respond, I just want to say what Jen said. Which is, I was cringing during the scene where Boomer was drilling Lou about Reb's transition. I really don't think Boomer was trying to be mean or make fun, though. I think she was genuinely curious or confused. She's not the brightest bulb. We already know that.
Okay, so I disagree. I don't disagree that she's not the brightest bulb. And I do think that her approach was ill-conceived. But I think she was taunting her.
You think it was an attempt at sarcasm?
I think it was an attempt at taunting her. And she not only did she fail dismally, but she incurred, wrath.
So
I don't think it was innocent questioning, because she knows, again, from Maxine, and she doesn't care about what
Reb.
she doesn't care about what Lou thinks about Reb not having a penis and getting whatever it is. She doesn't care about Lou. She hates Lou. So she wasn't, innocently inquiring. She was trying to taunt Lou, and she was figuring she might get away with it because she's Allie's. Under Allie's protection.
I think that actually it was just sloppy writing from the writers, because with Boomer repeatedly asking Allie not to underestimate Lou, that she is horrible and bad and bad and horrible and bad, I don't think she would just go around and do something like that knowing how bad she is. I think they did make an attempt to make her seem as if she really was not the brightest bulb in the, and just like asking these innocent questions, but I don't think she is as stupid. So I think this was just meant to get us to the showdown and get the ball rolling on Allie.
Yeah, I think they could have done it better. These writers are better than that, because I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
And by the way, David, Boomer has gotten something from prison, and that's family.
That's true.
She didn't have much of it outside, and
but
she did get out, and she didn't stay out.
Don't forget that a lot of her family has died in horrible ways.
Yes, that's true.
So that
too.
Is crushing.
Yes.
What more is crushing is
that she had to do it herself.
No,
that wailing. That was so amazing. It just cut through my heart like a knife.
I don't know if Katrina came up with that or if they told her, please make that sound. But that sound, specifically, was one of the most brilliant acting choices I've seen on this show.
Such pain.
Because it reminded me of? There was a time with B, especially in the final season of B, with her and Ferguson. They had, when Ferguson tried to kill B, they had that siren going on in the background. It sounded almost as if like a mosque kind of a sound. Mm-hmm. And that sounded like that. And it was so like, it comes like from the depth of the loins of, it was so, I just can't.
And it built and built. It was just amazing.
It was amazing. And,
really, Katrina, that's your Emmy role, babe.
Yep. And,
you don't do Emmys.
Yeah. Well, international Emmy you could do. Julie says, I never heard Boomer wail like that, and I never want to hear her wail like that again. It was haunting and so, so sad. Lou is on my shit list now, even though she's interesting. Kathy said that she actually, it's sad to her to see Boomer reverts back to her old vulnerable self, and that she misses the empowered Boomer of Sonia times. But I think
it's a very good thing that Sonia did for her, no matter what her motives were. She really did give Boomer self-respect.
But I think after what happened with Liz last season, it has to be this way, at least for a while, because she has to be haunted by what happened. I mean, even if she knows she did it for the right reasons, and she was so courageous to do it, oh my God, how do you live with something like that? It's horrible. And so... I don't know where they'll take Boomer's story. I hope that they will do something to offset some of this sadness and give her some other juicy material to work with, because otherwise, kind of like seeing Liz deteriorate into dementia, it will just be unbearable to see Boomer just lose all of her moxie and just...
Yes, we don't want the people we love to be victims all the time.
Especially because she's the last of our original people, besides Miles, but on that side of the bars, she's the last of the Mohicans, so... Speaking of Liz, we all missed her, and it was very weird not to have her. Denise sums it up very beautifully.
It was very weird watching this series without Liz in it. Kaz died early in season 7, so it gave us a little time to get used to it. But Liz died at the end. After all these years of watching this series, this was the first time I felt a true disconnect from the first season. It seemed like I was watching a totally new show. I know that this is a series set in a prison where people come and go, but I just wish the writers could incorporate more dialogue about past characters. I'm not saying we need more than a sentence or two once in a while. Listening to Boomer tell Vera, I wish Lizzie could see her, when she was holding Grace was beautiful. I just think the writers need to do that more often. It would be nice if we heard that Boomer talked to Frankie, or Allie remembers something Kaz told her, or Vera says she had lunch with Bridget. Just something to keep us connected to the past and those characters we love. And I say to that, I agree with you, but this is only the first episode. So hopefully there will be more of that.
Yeah.
We do need that string of connection.
Yeah. Okay, now it's time to talk about Mari, who is really rubbing you all the wrong way these days. Some examples from your thoughts on Mari this week, Jen?
Jen, I literally don't care about Mari in any way, shape, or form. Just make her go away.
Jane says Mari is irredeemable. David says? David is always the opposite of everybody else, and I love that.
A great episode for Mari. I loved the moment before she set foot in her new... I noticed it too, by the way, and I liked it too. Set foot in her new unit, and she begged not to be put in there. But as soon as the door opened, her face changed, and she held her head high. She is obviously a very frightened, very desperate, and devastated woman.
And so brilliant acting on Susie Porter's behalf.
Absolutely. Trying to hold it together under extreme pressure, while simultaneously trying to grieve her dead son and the loss of her freedom and lifestyle. I loved her motherly interaction with Reb.
Did you feel it was motherly?
But I just knew deep down...
It was like a cat and its mouse.
Yes, exactly. And I think, does he say? Oh, no, someone else says. But I just knew deep down she had an ulterior motive. Revenge now seems to be her main goal. Susie is a great mix of wildly frightening and absolutely adorable. I love the character because I'm constantly confused as to how I should be feeling about her.
That's good.
It is good, but I think by now we know that Mari is out for Mari. And,
but she's not a sociopath. She is capable
of
feeling some things, and she truly is grieving for her son.
Yes.
Lauren says, wow, didn't she look terrible when Jay greeted her? If she's going to make it through the season, she's going to have to find some protection in some way. Huge deal to have basically caused the siege and prisoners to be killed. How do you come back from that? How are you not murdered for that by the other women? She's going to have to work fast because right now she has nothing, no support, and Will hates her. Also, with Michael Heston being killed in Walford, there's no way she's getting to make whatever deal was on offer for her anymore. What you all are in agreement about, though, is that you're all tired of her wanting to kill Ruby. That plot is just like,
that is over. Come on. But that's all she has right now.
Rachel says, Mari has not given up hope in her efforts to kill Ruby. I think this will be the end for Mari. Allie will not allow Mari to win that battle. Mari will either be dead or transferred before the season is over. I think she's done about all she can do. However,
David says, at first I thought Mari was projecting Danny onto Reb, as they would be a similar age. And the thing is, that could really be plausible, because Mari is still grief-stricken. It was clever of her recruiting and manipulating someone as inconspicuous as Reb to murder Ruby. I have a feeling Lou is going to become aware of this plan, and not wanting Reb to carry out the deed, Lou will step up and attempt to kill Ruby. We've already seen this moment in the trailer.
I don't remember
and I have to say, David, don't tell me that. Damn, because I forgot it. I don't want to...
I didn't even know about it. But David also has a crazy theory. Well, it's not actually even his theory. He says he's read it somewhere. That she will fall under Sheila Bausch's religious influence and commit suicide by self-immolation?
Yeah, Mari?
Yes! I think that to me would be the most horrific ending for any character I've seen on this show.
Absolutely, and I'd hate for Sheila to be the person that pushes her in that direction.
I have a feeling Sheila is.
Murder.
Now, speaking of Ruby, I think I'll insert crickets here. What is there to say about Ruby? Nobody has anything to say about Ruby except she's there. That's something. She's there.
Yes, she's there as an object of Mari's, as impetus for Mari to do things that will get her into trouble.
And eventually when Rita is involved again, because don't worry, Rita will be involved again.
She'll be back.
Ruby is really there to move other people's plot along. I see Ruby as kind of an empty shell right now. She doesn't have her own anything. It might come later in the season, but honestly, I hate to say it, I don't care. I don't like Ruby. Sorry.
I never really liked Ruby either.
So let's move to the other side of the bars now and talk about some of our characters over there. All right?
Okay.
All right, we're going to start with a new character who I was completely surprised to see that you actually had a lot of responses and reactions to her.
I hardly noticed her.
Exactly, that's how I felt. But I'll tell you how I felt about it later, and you'll tell us, because obviously you felt more like I did. But let's start with some of you. So this is Anne Reynolds. She's the new general manager, so essentially the new Channing Sons Brothels, hopefully.
Someone already said that to her.
Yes.
I hope you don't have any brothels.
Boomer. Own any brothels, do you? She's played by Jane Hall. And we'll start with, we're going to do again kind of a back and forth. Teresa says, first off, damn, she's kind of hot. Looks-wise, she reminds me a little bit of Erica. I'm really interested in seeing what kind of things she'll change and how she'll work with Vera. I really like her so far and can't wait to get to know her more. Okay.
Well, Denise says, I'm not impressed. This is a character that reminds me of Erica, and I was never a fan of Erica. Anne Reynolds has the same ambitious drive that Erica had.
Really?
It's the type of ambition that steps all over people to get what they want. I don't trust her, and I really think she's going to stab Vera in the back.
That I agree with.
That I agree with, but I don't get that. I mean, I see
Erica
that she
was
wants
so much
to make...
softer.
That she wants... I barely remember Erica. I think that she wants to make changes. I think that she wants to... She was in London, and maybe this is a step down. Maybe she has something to prove, and I think she's very eager to do it. It's interesting the way she...
Hounded Vera?
Well, no, not hounded her. I think that she knows that Vera is necessary to the prison, that all the reasons she said why she wanted her. I think it's interesting that she gave in to Vera's demands for now, and she does seem to genuinely like her, but I don't trust her.
Oh, okay. Because I think
I don't trust her at all.
Because I think she likes Vera genuinely, and they have a past, and she obviously knows. I think she chooses Vera because she thinks Vera will make her look better. I think it's all about self-serving.
Mm-hmm.
It's about her goals, her career. Everything is about her. She'll never put the prison, the women, or any of the crew people first. But I just thought it was kind of...
It's always that way with the brass.
Rachel says, Anne is a piece of work. Oh, no, you know what? I gave that to me, and then I decided that actually you should read it because it said, like we say in the South.
Well, I'm not really from the South, honey.
No, but you know the South better than I do.
Anne is a piece of work. Like we say in the South, all hat and no cattle. She's all ambition, and I'll bet dollars to donuts we find out she was run out of British correction system for mismanagement, which is what I just said. I'm pretty sure that Wentworth is punishment. It's a step down for her.
Okay, who's next? David?
David. Yeah. I really thought I was going to enjoy this character, but her debut was kind of irritating. She is desperately unlikable at the moment. Well, I wouldn't go that far. But anyway, smug, persistent, and very sure of herself. I usually love characters like this, but her withering of poor Vera to return to work after only 3 months was really pissing me off. She's every manager I've ever hated in work. She's extremely right-wing and very black and white when it comes to the prisoners. Trouble.
When he says that she's very sure of herself, I think it's an act. I think she's very insecure.
Yes,
that's why she's trying to surround. That's why she needs Vera so much, because she knows that she doesn't have what it takes.
She has to climb her way back up in the system.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think being a general manager is quite a big step.
And she
but
says
not
she's trying
from
to
London.
impress people. She actually said that.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy says...
She was honest.
Yeah. Kathy said... No, I don't think she's very subtle about this. Kathy says, Anne Reynolds was happy to throw Will under the bus. She will have no problem doing the same to Vera if she needs to, or anyone else for that matter.
The thing about Vera is that if she gets thrown under the bus and has to go home and just take care of Gracie, I don't think she'll care one bit. So it has to be something worse.
She does care. She cares a lot. And even though now she's with Grace, as soon as she's sucked back into it, she will care again. The only thing that I can say is she has the back of those girls in H1, and I think that will come into play.
We need that. They need her.
Yeah.
I just, before I get to this other thing about Anne, I just so much loved, and I almost found it amazing, the rapport and the trust she has in those women when she brought Gracie and made them open the gates and let them hold her. She really loves those women.
Well, first of all, and we will talk about more of that later when we talk about Vera, but I think that the experience that they had during the siege, which put them together at the same side of the equation, as opposed to two opposite sides, they had to protect one another, and they did. Those girls delivered her baby. They saw her in the most intimate conditions.
Yes.
And I think that was a bonding experience unlike any other. And I think she truly, the way that she gave Boomer the baby, she trusts them.
Before.
Yes. She trusts them. She knows they would never harm her. And in fact, I think she knows that if the time came, they would do anything to protect her.
Yes.
And I think that alliance, I'm hoping to see that rise, because it warms my heart.
So beautiful. It really was. Julie says, Anne Reynolds seems to think she's better than everybody. It's a long way down from that high horse. And gravity is especially magnetic in Wentworth.
I love that. That's, to me, the perfect way to...
Very good. I have a big star next to it.
Yeah, to sum Anne Reynolds. To me, personally, she was just kind of blah.
Yeah,
that's why I was so surprised when all of you had so many feelings and reactions to her, because I really, honestly, barely noticed her, because to me, she was just another general manager wanting to make changes, wanting to impress, wanting to kiss asses so she could get her career advanced.
And she had all of these grand pronouncements, and every time Vera would go, no, that's not going to work. She sort of went, oh, well, all right, well, no, well, all right, you know.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting, that she backed down rather easily from some of her, especially the will thing. But
she had to,
Vera said right away that was a deal breaker.
Yeah. I think that when it comes to Anne, I think we'll just the only question that I have is not is she corruptible, but how corruptible she is. So yeah, and of course how her ambition and lack of care for the real things besides herself, how those things will impact, most importantly, our precious Vera.
And how much worse could any of them be than Channing, though?
Don't challenge Wentworth. They will always show you that there can be worse.
I mean, Channing was just the scum of the earth.
We'll see. She might just be a different kind of scum.
Maybe.
So before we get to Vera, because we have a lot to say about Vera, let's talk about another person who could be severely and seriously impacted by Anne's ambition, which is Will, who is our current governor. You've had quite a few reactions to him, starting with Jen, who says the new general manager wanting to blame Will for everything is a little shitty, but also he did kind of bang a prisoner who used her power over him to plan an escape, so he probably kind of deserves to be canned for at least that. Jane says,
I have so little patience for him. Why is he still the governor is a big question. As why are there still CCTVs from 1987 is as big a question. There was a huge siege under his watch, and he is still in place. And when he snarks that Mari doesn't even deserve to get some outside time, I want to say, dude, you don't deserve to even have a job anymore. You were complicit, my friend. I have no sympathy for you. It will take a lot for him to redeem himself.
Don't we say that every season?
And I think when she says you were complicit, my friend, that's in like, bless your heart.
This is why, if you've wondered, I give you all the Jane comments. Not because of the accent, but, and speaking of accent, David says, ew.
David says, you can see Will is still in love with Mari.
Really?
It's interesting. It wasn't just sex for him. He lost his heart to her a little bit because she was there for him at such a vulnerable time. A part of him keeping her isolated is to protect her, I think.
I love David's outlook on life.
David, you're such a
This
sweetheart.
is why we love you.
It's not just coming from a need to punish her. I was moved by him willing to stick around to help rebuild the prison after what happened in the siege. He feels, and should, extremely guilty and responsible for what happened.
And I'm sure that's correct, by the way. That still doesn't mean that people on top shouldn't say, tough luck, you're not getting to stay. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure that's how he feels, because he's a good guy.
He feels extremely guilty and responsible for what the women went through, and I felt proud of him that he was willing to hold his hands up and hold himself accountable. I'm intrigued by this rivalry he's going to have with Anne. They're either going to hate each other or fall into bed together.
Yikes. No. I don't need to see that.
I don't see her as his type.
Rachel says, Will wants to be a good boy now. Isn't that nice? His past is about to bite him in the ass. Not only is he going to be investigated for his affair with Mary, the freak is back and he'll turn back into a mental case before it's all over. On the flip side of that, though, Lauren says, I hope that with the return of Joan, the news of Joan being alive, that his dark moods and all of the nightmares will end. He hasn't killed anybody. So actually, it's kind of it's an interesting kind of, it could bring back the nightmares because she's out there and she definitely would want revenge. And on the other side, he doesn't have to think like, he's not a killer anymore. He's not a killer anymore.
He still did it.
I know, but still.
You know, the intent is as bad as what the
not entirely
final
as
thing.
bad.
Yes, I think so. He did it he still buried her alive.
Yes, but if he hasn't killed her, then he can say, okay, well, I didn't do that. I'm never going to do
but I
that
meant
again.
to.
Yeah, well, he was doing it for the right reasons. Okay, so in the preview, we see that Mari wants to go back into general population, and he doesn't want to do that, and so she threatens to rain hell on him in the form of alleged sexual assault. And I have to say, he was in a position of power, so I think from a legal standpoint, he probably will be accountable for that. It's like, when a boss and an employee, then even if it was consensual, since he, somebody wielded power over the other, then it could be sexual harassment or sexual assault. So we'll see what happens with that. But I am glad that Vera didn't let Anne throw him under the bus and that he'll stick around. Now, Smiles. Or is she still smiling?
Yeah, very smiley.
Many of you couldn't understand why Smiles was so mean to Reb, and I will read a couple of your points, but I felt completely different about it. And here we go. So, Teresa says, Ms. Miles, what the fuck? Why did we automatically threaten Reb with a stick when he refused the strip search? That didn't seem like Miles there for a second. And Julie says, Linda feels bitchier, doesn't she? Innocent, traumatized Reb made her look meaner, I'm sure, but she usually seems a little more humorously unaffected and bored with her own job, even when she's pissed off. I immediately thought, well, this is Linda who just experienced a siege and been traumatized and had a horrible, horrible season of just all hell breaking loose on her. And obviously she is not taking shit anymore. She's not feeling as humorous about it anymore. And David kind of echoed my feelings, but also added a weird theory.
But also, I'm also saying there don't seem to be a lot of people around willing to bribe her for things anymore. That was a whole lot of her accommodating people because she was getting paid for it. Mm. David says, well, she certainly has had enough of accommodating the prisoners, hasn't she? She's tougher, harsher, and less tolerant now. I think she's suffering major PTSD from the siege. Yeah. Though I read somewhere that she agrees wholeheartedly with Anne's extreme right-wing agenda and will use this as an opportunity to climb the ladder. Smiles isn't smiling anymore. What a brilliant move allowing Jackie Brennan to shine. Such an underrated original cast member. It's wonderful she's getting more meaty stuff to do, and I say right on, David.
Yes, and we also take full credit for that because for years we've been saying give Smiles more to do.
Right.
And we love Jackie Brennan. I sure hope that they do. I mean, really, she had a very tough season last season. And we were so grateful that they gave her more to do. I think
she's going to have a lot more to do this
I hope so, because especially from an emotional journey perspective, she has a lot to go through, and and they made her they gave her more substance last year. I would like to see more of that, so that would be great. When it comes to Jake, there's really nothing to say so far.
I didn't even barely notice him.
Right, because he was barely noticeable. He's trying to be a good boy. Rachel thinks that won't last, that the freak will get to him and use him again or something. And Lauren thinks that Grace coming to work with Vera every day could allow for some father-daughter bonding. I wonder if it could also allow for father-mother bonding, if that's going to happen again, or if that's in the past and Vera would never do it again. Speaking of Vera, it's time to speak about Vera and Grace.
Gracie, she's
so cute. I love seeing Vera feeling so light and literally with her hair down and happy. And unfortunately, we don't expect it to last too long, which in and of itself is a problem. I think that every time that Vera is happy, we don't expect it to last long. And Sharon says, Vera is for sure going to eat a lot of shit this season, both from Ferguson and the new chick in charge. And that is a little bit of a drag because she seems happy being a new mother and actually wouldn't have hurt if the writers had developed her storyline in more positive directions. She deserves that.
I agree.
I agree. I think we all agree. But she's back, and not as the new governor, but as the new...
she could have been the new governor, but she didn't want it, and I don't blame her. And she certainly didn't want to stab Will in the back.
And in fact, I think it's a great idea to put her in charge of something that would put her in direct contact with the women, not necessarily in opposing authoritarian position, but
right.
in a place where actually there could be more bonding, more collaboration. Maybe when the time comes, they will need to do something together in order to stave off some evil forces, I don't know. But Jen says, I love the idea of Vera coming back to work with the women on new programs instead of being governor. She's such a fucking good person, and the women love and respect her. However, Camille says, and I agree, Camille says, and I don't know where she got that from, but it's an interesting idea. She says that the new manager could be in cahoots with the freak, and that that goes along with some other people who thought that Anne has ulterior motives in trying to get Vera back to work, that she doesn't just want her because she needs her, because she knows what she's doing, but that she is working somehow to undermine
Seems a little
her.
far-fetched.
You know what, when it comes to the freak,
yes,
everything is far-fetched.
It's just that she seems so uninteresting. But I suppose that's just, just be an act.
No, she's going to, I think, be important. The fact that she seems uninteresting right now, I don't know if it's an act or if it's what the writers want us to think. But I don't know if she knows it now that she's going to do something bad later. That's what I say. She's corruptible for sure.
Oh, yes.
We'll see how corruptible.
Easily corruptible.
Right, so we'll see what happens to her that will make her do things. I don't necessarily think, as opposed to some of you who think she does already have ulterior motives in hiring Vera, I don't think right now she has, except for self-serving, but...
No, I think she thinks she needs Vera, and she tells Vera she needs Vera.
Right.
And I think that her motives are absolutely right out there. I need you to help me. You know the prison, you know the women. I need you. Right,
but I think that she would not hesitate when the occasion happens. When again, it's all about her. So whatever she needs to do, now she needs Vera. Tomorrow she won't need Vera. She'll throw on. It's all about herself. So
anyway, we have a lot of episodes to go to find out.
Not enough though. Rachel says, Vera has bonded with the H1 girls over their shared experience with the siege. I think we may see Vera use that bond to her advantage. We have come to love Vera, but she does have a propensity for using others when it suits her. I don't know about that, but
really
she specifically thinks that she'll use this against Mari. She'll use the girls' help against Mari to try to save Will's ass with all the allegations. But we'll see. Whatever happens with Vera, we now know that Vera and Grace's storyline will be inextricably entangled with Ferguson's storyline.
Just shoot me now.
Now Denise asks,
I'm not sure why Vera has always been the one that Ferguson has the most issues with. There are so many that ruined her reign as governor of Wentworth. She had huge issues with Will in season 3. In fact, he was the one she despised the most because he had taken Gianna's baby from her. Ferguson hated Bridget and Frankie as well, who are also out of the prison. So why she zeroed in on Vera, I've never really been clear on.
I'll tell you what I think. I think Vera was her mentee all the way to the bun. And I think Ferguson cultivated her and groomed her, and she turned on her, and that was a major insult. I don't know, maybe she had a little bit of a crush on her. Some of you did have a little bit of
maybe.
Some of you did think that there was something going on there.
She had a lot to do with her downfall, too.
She took her place.
Yep.
She groomed her, and she turned on her, and she took her place. I think that was a huge betrayal to Ferguson, and I think she needs to obsess on somebody. And Vera, tiny Vera, she thinks is a very, very easy target.
You would think she'd had more ambition.
But she doesn't. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think she's just needs somebody to obsess over, and Vera is an easy target. So maybe
and now
afterwards.
With Gracie.
Exactly. So, moving on to talk about the Ferguson. I know it's your favorite subject matter, and we're talking about one side of the bar, the other side of the bars. This is like a whole other side of the bars.
Every time I see her, it just takes me right out of the show. I'm enjoying. Oh, it's so then.
So Jen.
Who agrees with me? I honestly don't care about this stupid Ferguson storyline. I know she's supposed to be the big bad and the ultimate villain, but she's just a parody of herself at this point. Bringing her back was fucking dumb, and I highly doubt that there's anything they can do with the character that will change my mind on that
The
point.
Blue Jay is also making sound effects to this
Yes,
effect.
the Blue Jay agrees with me completely. Go ahead, Blue Jay, or BJ as I call them. Tell it like it is.
Yes.
Anyway, Jen says, and if she hurts Vera or the baby, so help me, I will quit this show.
I think you've threatened that before, Jen. I did call your bluff several times. I don't think you would take that.
So did
off.
they. But
Yeah,
let me just say that I really, 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 really agree. I just hate Ferguson. I love Pamela Rabe. I think she's brilliant, but I think that she now has come to depend on 3 or 4 facial expressions.
Oh, 3 or 4. I thought 1.
No, she has 3 or
2.
4 that she uses over and over and over again.
Oh, I did enough already. Sorry. Yes.
I just have lost every bit of admiration I even had for her in this role as an actress. I think she is brilliant. I love her. Her early material and performance in this show we just couldn't get enough of it. But now we've had too much of it.
Yeah.
And I just can't bear that they decided to dig her up and put her, prop her up again and set her in motion.
Which, by the way, in that interview that I read with Jo Porter, she said that the writers did present her with the story that they came up with, how she managed to come back to life. And she said that it works. Now, she is the producer, and she needs to believe that it works. But we'll see. We'll find out.
Just because it works doesn't make it right. The guillotine also works.
Sean says, Ferguson's return is a drag, and any attempt on the writer's part to make it sound logical will for sure sound, to me anyway, forced and unlikely, and that's a shame.
Denise says, I keep having to tell myself that this is a soap opera and I have to put aside my aggravation for this character. After all, most soaps do have that one character that keeps dying and returning. Many of them. As irritating as Joan Ferguson is, I have to say that Pamela Rabe is still fun to watch play this psychopath character. If the writers can keep this part of the story from overwhelming the season, then I can deal with the aggravation of the freak again. I just hope her screen time this season is short and sweet.
That's key.
Maybe in the 4th episode she will walk in front of a car and be killed once and for all. We can only hope. Not going to happen.
I don't think so. And actually, David said something at some point to me, not in the Talking Teal email, that the original freak and prisoner was like a cockroach. He just never died. So that they're kind of going with that original character. Lauren says, let's hope that despite the ridiculousness of her coming back from the dead out of a grave, finding a doppelganger homeless lady to kill and put back in the box, then assume her identity, that the story is not continually Joan being a superhuman being capable of hearing every conversation around every corner. I mean, already she somehow knows the names of every person Vera is spending time with and has amassed enough money to buy a high-quality camera and get the photos processed, and she has even enough money to purchase 2 passports with birth certificates she probably had to pay for as well. Kind of crazy when you see that she is on the dole. I know people here don't get that much money. Maybe she attacked other people and stole. Who knows? Anything is possible. You have to laugh. The writers clearly wanted Joan to be alive and have made it happen.
And they gave her a Carrie Mathison wall.
Yeah.
I don't have to laugh. And I'm not laughing. And I'm not happy.
To balance things out a little bit, David.
I cannot tell you how happy I am to have Pamela Rabe back in the cast. I was so devastated to see Joan reduced to a rotting corpse in the shallow grave.
You can always count on David.
David, no. She should be dead.
So the freak is back with her 1 to 4 expressions and with her black gloves. And Julie says, they are as iconic as her pencils, and she seems to have an unending supply of them. Where does she purchase them? Are you asking for a friend, Julie? I do love, by the way, that there is one theme that has been carried over for the Freak, and I love that the new DP is employing that as well, which is you always see when she looks in the mirror, it's always distorted mirrors. You always see her face kind of in the mirror.
That's true. I didn't notice that.
I do love that. So she's... No, hold on. She's living under an identity that she stole, Kath Maxwell, and David has an interesting little bit of nugget of information about that. Kath Maxwell was a character in her own right in Prisoner. She was the last top dog. Ha! She was also a child killer. So,
no!
So quite what this twist means for Vera and Grace, I have no idea.
Oh, no. I think they're just taking...
They're just kind of throwing little Easter eggs, maybe. What is up?
What is with that blue
jay? You know what would be funny? If as soon as we stop talking about Ferguson, if he shuts up, that would be very funny.
I'll go out and throw a peanut.
So she is, what I don't understand, and maybe if Kath Maxwell was a homeless person, maybe that would be one explanation, but if she has a bank account and she's been using it, the Freak has been using it. Yes, she's been using her bank account, she's been collecting her dough, and at the same time, so she's supposedly, all of her stuff is still active, but doesn't she have somebody who noticed she's no longer around?
Well, maybe she that sort of homeless kind of guy recognized her, so maybe not.
Right,
She might be one of those people with no people.
Maybe, but she has a bank account even.
Yes, but do you think the people in the bank care just as long as her card works? They don't care.
I guess. I mean, she does have, and her face was plastered all over television, was an escaped, especially violent escapee from prison.
Well, that's why that person said.
The travel. So all these people we see people are starting to question her identity, but there are a lot of Kath Maxwells, and she just has one of those faces. Yeah.
With the smile.
Jen says, Ferguson is hiding out by the railroad tracks? Is she a silent film villain now? So fucking dumb. And Jen
says, please, no Silence of the Lamb crazy. And that always makes me think of Ted, what's his name, who played Buffalo Bill. She takes the lotion out of the basket when he lowers down the basket and talks in the third person about Brooke Smith's character.
I'm just thinking, oh my God, please no leather jackets made out of Vera.
Leather jackets. That terrible horror movie I watched, right?
So, Baby Grace's storyline. Let's start with Jen.
Oh, how original. Ferguson was obsessed with Gianna's baby, then she was obsessed with Doreen's baby, and now, that's right, you guessed it, she's obsessed with Vera's baby. Don't get me yawning. Yawn.
Ferguson is not going to yawn.
What's going on in the prison with the new characters is so much more interesting than this recycled bullshit. I legitimately roll my eyes every time the Freak comes on the screen. I was over it back in season 5, now my interest is as dead and buried as her fucking character should be. Oh, yes! Bravo, Jen. We are of a single mind.
Now, Julie says the Baby Grace storyline could be an upgrade on Joan's level of evil if they take it there. It could get interesting because of Joan's historic obsession with babies, pregnancies, and parent-child relationships because of her father. Note, why do we know nothing about her mother? Or am I forgetting something? No, I don't think we know anything
about her mother.
She tends to see babies as valuable beyond just her normal way of using humans as a means to her sociopathic end.
Well, and also, what's the worst thing she could do to Vera?
Well, of course. Finally, Linda says, if the Freak touches a hair on Grace's head, I hope Rita gets her. But David says, a very interesting theory from David. Yeah.
This season is subtitled Wentworth Redemption. We've heard several accounts that Joan's return isn't what we think it's going to be, and that fans will feel some sympathy for her. Ha! Could we be on course for a redemption arc for Joan Ferguson?
Now, we have heard several times that it's not what we think that Joan's storyline is not what we think it's going to be, so...
Joan has always felt inclined to protect children and babies. So could this stalking of Vera be her believing that she would be a better mother to the child than Vera? Well, I don't care.
No, but it could be. It's interesting. It's an interesting, if she's not doing it out of revenge, but if it's just, yeah.
Maybe she feels like she has a claim to Grace. As Jake's whole relationship with Vera was at her instruction, maybe somewhere in her twisted mind she feels like she created her. Wentworth has always had themes of motherhood, so to end its run with a tragic and twisted arc around Ferguson's need to be a mother, I think would be pretty darn special. Yes, she is evil, but what people love about Joan's character is it comes from a very real and human place.
Not sure I agree with you on that one.
No. Stealing Grace would be a perfect revenge on just about everyone who wronged her. Vera and Jake would be devastated, Will would be blamed for not finishing her off properly, and Allie would know she's alive but have no way of ever getting to her because she's stuck in prison.
All in all, I think
it is interesting. It's a very interesting theory.
David always thinks outside the box.
Yes, he does.
So,
I have more, David.
Yes, you will in a second. This leads us, as Linda says, if the freak does anything to Grace, I hope Rita gets her. And I completely forgot that this season, to me, was originally going to be about Rita versus Ferguson. And that is something I think that happened in the original Prisoner. Now, we didn't see much of Rita this time, except to see her out in her... Well, she was in protective custody, but I don't think she will be there anymore because she was going to testify against Heston. He's dead now, so they don't really need her. And now that her colleagues have been tipped off that she was going to lag on them, I think she's in deep shit. But Rita can handle herself.
I'm not worried about Rita.
In fact, I'm looking forward to seeing her kick ass again. But she's probably in real danger. And David says?
I always hoped for that legendary clash between Ferguson and Rita in Prisoner to happen in Wentworth, and now it's looking more likely. From behind-the-scenes footage, we can see her old handler, Detective Jones, in a fight with her at the warehouse. So who she thought were the good guys are now the villains.
Right, so
at least in her life.
Something will land her back in prison. Now, don't forget she did kill Drago, which on its own, even though
Drago wanted killing.
It doesn't matter. She killed somebody. She can't even really claim that it was self-defense because she wasn't in any danger. And she was a cop. So she should have known better. So just for that, that's already one reason she might go back to prison. And then we don't know what she'll end up having to do if she's in danger, as David says, if those colleagues of her try to get her and she ends up doing something. Plus, let's not forget, Ruby's in prison. And as Rachel says, I think we may see Rita give up her own freedom for Ruby's protection.
It's possible.
Yeah, although she did have an agreement with Will that he will take care of Ruby, but we know how good Will is on protecting the women, even though he tries very hard.
Let me just say, in case any of you care, there's a hawk out there. I hear it whistling, and that's what the blue jay was screaming about.
Very, very apropos of everything we're talking about. Ferguson's
Predators. Predators.
So I'm sure that we'll see more of Rita coming moving forward, and I think, and we might have to wait till next season for that, but I do think there will be a showdown between Rita and Ferguson.
I hope so, and I hope Rita wins.
So, I think this is it for now.
Oh God, I hope so. I'm exhausted.
I'm exhausted too. Oh my God, and you must be too.
You guys were fantastic.
I sure hope you brought snacks, you took pee-pee breaks and all that stuff because this was long. Thank you for all your emails, all your insights. Work. As always, I love all your perspectives on things and knowledge of past, present, other things. We still have more characters to come, new characters that will come. Unfortunately, I think Marta is only coming in episode 3, which is disappointing, but probably in season 2 we'll have that new hacker girl. Then that looks interesting. And Reynolds did promise us more A-class offenders so she could get more money for the prison.
Yeah.
So again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for writing. We look forward to the next one. If we have enough engagement from you, that will be next week. And don't forget to vote.
It all depends on you.
It all depends on you.
Don't forget to vote. And don't forget, if you feel like it, to give a few bucks to a charity.
To the charities. Vote for the Lady Parts TV Awards. Just go to our website, ladypartstv.com, and pick up your ballot and send it ASAP because the deadline is coming near. And enjoy a new episode of Wentworth.
Can't wait.
Bye.